Walking through pain, loss, and disappointment. Part 3, connecting with God. I've seen 3 ways primarily that people have responded poorly to pain, loss, and disappointment. And the first way, it's pretty obvious. You become bitter, you become offended, and you walk away from God. But the second way I've seen is when people go straight to some sort of spiritual activity, praying, fasting, declaring scripture, all those sorts of things, to try and overcome the difficulty rather than going to God first and seeing what He's doing. And while these things are good things to do, I do them myself. I encourage you to do them overall. But if you do them without connecting with God, it becomes kind of manipulation. You're trying to get God to do what you want Him to do in your life. And then when He doesn't respond to the manipulation, a lot of people end up having a crisis of faith. Now, the third thing is when people kind of go into this, well, this suffering is just something I got to bear through, and they kind of go into this survival mode and try and muscle through this situation in their own strength, and they'll even hyper-spiritualize it, like, well, I'm going through suffering, that means I'm spiritual, and they'll use spiritual language to sound like this is something great and grand, when in reality they haven't gone to God to see if He wants them to go through it or not. Now, obviously, sometimes God has us walk through suffering, or to go through loss or pain or trials, but He never asks us to go through it alone, and He never asks us to do it in our own strength. Now, all 3 of these, at the root of them, have the same problem. And that problem is disconnect with God. Instead of going for connection with God, you go to grab control so that you can feel like you're taking care of yourself. And you're doing what you need. And you're making what you need happen in your life. And when we connect with God, we're going to find that God has something for us in the middle of our suffering. We know that God does not cause suffering, but He uses it for good because, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but Jesus came to give us life. We know that God works all things together for good to those who love Him. And there's going to be scripture references in the description. But in the middle of this, in the middle of these things, God has something for us. There's opportunities. There's an opportunity, for one, there's always an opportunity for us to get to know God in a new or in a different way. And one of the great prayers that I love to pray in the middle of this is, God, who do you want to be in the middle of this situation? How do you want to reveal yourself right now to me? He's always got an answer for that one. Another thing is that these difficulties that we're facing, they might have within them the spiritual nutrients, if you will, that will grow us to prepare us to enter a promise that God's bringing us, or maybe to walk with ease through another difficulty that's coming. So this one's hard, but the next one's going to be easy. We don't know. I mean, think about David going up against the lion and the bear, and then he gets to Goliath, and he's like, I got this. I'm coming to you in the name of the Lord. You're nothing. And he takes Goliath down. He takes the giant down. And you remember in Psalm 23, where it says, you prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. Right there in the middle of difficulties, there are things that God has for you. Things that God has for me in the middle of my difficulties. That are prepared right there, that maybe you would never be able to get in any other time. Maybe there's things He has for you that you would never get in any other time in your life. And one of the stories that become one of my favorite stories about this lately is, you remember the 12 spies go out into Canaan, and they all come back telling the same story. There's giants, there's walled cities, there's huge armies. 10 of them say, we're doomed. Joshua and Caleb come up and say, those giants, they're our bread. Or other translations, we're going to swallow them up. That's our dinner. Those giants, those problems, those impossibilities are our dinner. And so God will sometimes place what you need right in the middle of the impossible. And when you connect with Him, He will walk you into the impossible. and the impossible becomes not just possible, but a guarantee because of him. And I'm telling you, I've tested this with most recently when I went through, abuse, divorce, concern for my child, for his safety. And when I was facing those problems and I was overwhelmed, I looked at them and I said, that's giant dinner. I am going to grow. I am going to heal. I'm going to have a positive outcome in the middle of this, not because of me, not because I have something in me, because he is bigger than any situation I can possibly face. And he's got the answers. So right now, in the middle of your situation, I encourage you, go to God, say, who do you want to be in the middle of my situation? Do you want to be a healer? Do you want to be the one who walks through the sorrow with me? Do you want to grieve with me? What do you want to do with God? How do you want to reveal yourself? And also, God, where are the nutrients here? Where's that giant dinner? How do I grow? How do I have positive outcome coming out of this? Because I promise you it's possible. So may you hear from God. May you see his face. And I'll see you in part 4.